Ty, if you wanted to make a podcast, how would you do it?
Spotify Podcasters app, of course, or hell, even the website.
Do they have any way you can edit audio and help with organizing your episodes?
All that and more. You can reach out to listeners and have feedback with their Q&A feature, and it distributes it to all other major places you listen to podcasts.
I just looked, and they got a video podcast set up and editing tools here, too.
So all you got to do is sign up at SpotifyForPodcasters.com or get the app, and you're done.
Damn, it's just that easy.
Drop what you're doing, swallow what you're chewing, because it ain't wet from sweat, and we ain't done yet. Welcome to Inner Idiot Podcast, where we just want to brighten up your days and, touch your insides. And when I say touch your insides, I mean your heart, because we just want to make you laugh and smile.
We want to touch your days in inappropriate ways.
That's right. I am the big, the bald, the beautiful, the brash, the bumbling, and the oftentimes bastardly MC Tyler Havlin. And I talk slow and I walk slower because that's just how I roll, people.
2 claps and Ric Flair.
Woo! Next up, you hear his voice. He is the Lord that's never bored, the commander of the comic books. He ain't taking his shirt off yet, but when he does, it'll make your
I'll freeze my tits off.
It'll make your Aunt Esther wet. 2 claps and Ric Flair for Lord Shorty Fresh in the flesh. Woo! All right, next up is like our very own Captain Planet. Okay, because I have a background in martial arts and you, Shorty, have a background in theater. So with those powers combined, we bring to you Miss Brittany Donahue. 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Woo!
Woo!
And she woos. It's perfect.
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do, because I done said you are Captain Planet, and when you first reached out, I was like, man, this is a really cool thing that I have never heard of.
Yeah, sure thing. So, hey y'all, my name's Brittany Donahue. So I got the Scandinavian and the Irish going on, and I am the executive director and co-founder of Argent Combat. We're a Philly-based organization and school of professionals and students of stage combat and theatrical violence. So if you've seen a fall down some stairs, a sword fight, even just a slap on the face in any media production, we're usually the type of folks that are behind it. So we make that action happen for you.
You had me at violence.
Yeah, man. The way that I just it's so funny because we're all we're definitely the jocks of the theater world, but we're all wholesome. Like, if anybody's seen the Barbie movie, we are Knuff. So we are super welcoming. Oh, friendship through violence, or at least theatrical violence, because we're not actually hurting each other, because we got to get up every day and do it on stage once a day and twice on Saturdays. So we got to make sure that our moneymakers are looking good, and we're not actually hurting anybody.
Now, see, it's weird because you're in the field of violence in theater. So in theater, your moneymaker's your face. But see, you're in violent theater. So is it your hands and your face, or primarily your hands?
A little bit of both. When it comes to casting, you send in a headshot. It's a shot of your head. So,
right.
You got to convey that narrative clarity of who you are, what kind of character you can play. And we got to keep ourselves looking pristine. Not just for aesthetic reasons, but also function. We got to stay healthy in order to keep doing what we do every day and providing action-oriented entertainment.
See, that's really neat. Do you guys put on shows through the school regularly?
So it's kind of interesting because we run a school. So we're teaching performers and enthusiasts how to do the things that we do. And a lot of folks often ask us, is the violence real? Are the weapons real? And in some ways we can say technically yes, but there are some augmentations. The best way that I can describe stage combat is it's more magic tricks than it is martial arts. Because we got to tell that story. We got to convey to the audience that, this dude just got punched by this dude. But we're not actually punching that dude, So it's kind of interesting in that a lot of the aesthetics of the movement are martial arts, but the actual conveyance of those movements, the actual functionality is more sleight of hand and prestidigitation. So in some ways, we're kind of like magicians and martial artists.
Yeah, because you're not only learning how to fake throw a punch, you're learning how to fake take a punch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of mechanisms to that. One of my favorites when I tell folks and it kind of blows their mind is what we call the nap, which is a sound folly that can be done on stage. We're East Coast, so we're a bit more theater leaning than we are film leaning, like you would be in LA and on the West Coast.
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that we do are actually live. There are a lot of different percussive parts of the body.
Right.
My favorites are kind of that gap in between where the collarbone and the pectorals meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For example, so if I were to throw a punch,
Right.
yeah, that travels, that tells the story.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the way I kind of explain stage combat to folks is like, yeah, you know how, of course, the script tells a story, the costuming tells a story,
Right.
the set tells a story. Stage combat also contributes to that narrative clarity. It tells a story. Yeah. So
I mean, you see, if you pay attention to credits, you notice how you have like a stunt coordinator and, fighting coordinator, and you have a laundry list of people set to help produce that singular, scene, if it is just one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting too, because you mentioned stunts, and it's kind of an interesting thing talking to folks that are like, oh, so you're a stunt actor. And it's like, yeah, no. So stunts and stage combat are similar, but different. Like the best way I can kind of try to describe them is they're cousins and they're friendly cousins, where some stunt actors do stage combat, some stage combat actor combatants do stunts. Stunts is kind of more in the realm of pyrotechnics, fire.
Sure. And I assume individual, like there is nobody else in the scene. It's just somebody reacting to either the environment or set.
Exactly. Yeah, like the big difference between stunts and stage combat is not just, the techniques and safety protocol that we all adhere to,
Sure,
but also just different parental organizations. For example, myself and my husband Oliver, we founded Argent Combat. We're a stage combat and theatrical violence organization. And our parental organization is here in the States, the Society of American Fight Directors. And Oliver and one of our lovely senior demo assistants who's on the track to become a teacher himself, Steve, are both certified under the organization Fight Directors Canada. So we can teach throughout North America, which is really neat.
right.
So those are our parental organizations. And then stunts have a different parental organization, but those organizations are kind of siblings in a way.
Sure.
And we're just kind of like cousins.
Right.
Is really how it goes. And we just kind of mesh with everything that we're doing. Like stunt actors, can learn stage combat, which is a bit more focused on actual that prestidigitation and martial arts that I was talking about. But we can also delve as actor combatants into pyrotechnics and high falls and stuff like that stunt performers learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mishmash, and family reunions are really cool in that regard.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
We're here to make family reunions fun.
We are.
All right, so we're gonna jump into today's top 5, and in honor of you, today's top 5 is top 5 fight scenes in movies. And Brittany, we're gonna let you kick us off with it.
Oh, hell yeah. And if you guys don't mind, I'm pulling up my phone because Oliver and I, Oliver, who can't be with us today because he's busy doing choreography for an action show right now.
Awesome.
Good to know he's working.
All right, so I'll start with number 5. And all these movies that I'm talking about right now are focusing on one of the 8 stage combat disciplines that we're teaching right now. We're going to be starting up a small sword class in October here in Philly, and the response has been great, like to the point where we might have to actually open a second class. So we're already oversold. We're trying to figure out what to do. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Definitely a good problem to have.
Yeah, but when I say small sword, I'm meaning like the Three Musketeers. We're talking Tyrone Powell. We're talking Errol Flynn. We're talking Basil Rathbone. We're talking not so much swashbuckling. That's more single sword. But these are just like small sword is the weapon when you want to have witty comebacks and like backhanded compliments, like "ha ha, send my regards to your mother."
Okay. It's
Yeah, so these are like
gotcha.
it's posh, and Philly's definitely, even though Philly is very gritty. I mean, we literally have a mascot called Gritty.
It is
Philly
very posh.
Yeah, Philly is a small sword town, thanks to Fight Master Ian Rose, who is, in essence, he's sword dad here in Philadelphia. He's the reason why Oliver and I met. We were both taking his class. But yeah, I'll start with, I'm probably going to take some heat for this one, but this is what I wish all of the Game of Thrones fights were. Because the GOT fights, there are only 2 that were genuinely pretty solid. Because the rest of it is just kind of, oh man, I don't want to call it a mess, but it's definitely a thing where it's like, oh, you guys could do better. Like, you had the funding for it, you had the budget for it. But this first fight, if you want that visceral, like, these guys are gonna die, you know, these 2 actors are endowing these theatrical blades with that fear and that danger of, we're gonna die, we're falling apart. That is the Four Musketeers from 1974, and it's a fight between D'Artagnan and Roquefort, and it's Michael York and Christopher Lee as Roquefort.
Yeah.
It's so goddamn good.
That movie is good.
I thought there was only 3 Musketeers.
Well,
There's a 4th
Alexandre
one?
Dumas did his thing. But yeah, in the Four Musketeers, it's an incredible fight. If you folks get a chance to check it out, it's 1974, so it's getting close to public domain at this point. We managed to watch the scene on YouTube. So definitely check it out. And it's beautiful. Like, York and Lee are just absolutely killing each other, and the aesthetics are top notch. Like, the cinematography is beautiful. There's a moment where they are fighting in a cathedral, and you can see the light shining through the stained glass rose window, like creating a rainbow reflection circle on the ground, and they're fighting in it. And it's just like, there's no, it's aesthetic without even trying. It's just so dramatic, it's so beautiful. Definitely check that one out, because York and Lee are absolutely killing each other in that one. And I mean, the fencing and the blades, like the craftsmanship of the blades themselves, are fantastic. Everything is just like chef's kiss. So that's number 5. That's the bottom of my list. So hopefully that's a precursor to like all the awesomeness that's coming ahead. My number 4, and Oliver's number 4 too, because we're definitely like soul searching. Like, we got to talk about sword fights. We got to find the best sword fights to talk about on this show. But the next one, number 4, is the Scarlet Pimpernel from 1982. And that is Anthony Andrews and Sir Ian McKellen. So thinking of a young Ian McKellen, and
I know who that is.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart's best friend. They're buddies.
I don't know if I've seen this one.
Definitely check it out. It's amazing. It's the Blankley versus Chevalier fight. And man, like, if you're talking snappy comebacks, witticisms, really good backhanded compliments, aesthetic, really strong fencing, like, there is a beautiful actual fandango in this. And a point where, not to give any spoilers, and sorry for the pun, but a point where there is a point of a sword literally right in Sir Ian McKellen's face, like right here, just getting ready to, up in his chin. Beautiful, gorgeous fight, and absolutely worth it. Like, if you're a person that's questioning if you want to get into sword fighting, that's a fight to watch, because it will lean you hard into the, oh yeah, this is the thing I want to do. This is really cool. Another one.
Getting into sword fighting sounds fun, but swords getting into me doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. The fight should be in you, not the sword.
Yeah.
That's kind of our whole thing with stage combat.
If it's in you, you need to do a better job.
Exactly. Like if it winds up, like I always have a joke of like, yeah, the best way to a person's heart is in between the fourth and fifth rib.
Yeah.
But we don't actually want to do that. So number 3 on this list, which is mid but also incredible, also in the public domain, so you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. I managed to find it, is the 1940 production of The Mask of Zorro. And
yeah.
It's Tyrone Power and Basil Rathbone fighting as Diego de la Vega and Captain Esteban Pascal. Like, oh man, like you can tell.
Oh, we're losing you again, Brittany.
Just like the precision and the intensity that these two had, and chef's kiss again. Like, incredible fight, and you could just watch it. You could watch the entire movie. It was actually one of the assignments that we had for our students last semester for Single Sword. It was just like, here are 3 different productions of The Mask of Zorro that are available online, and they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. There is that bit in The Mask of Zorro in 1940 where Diego just like slashes a candle, and the Capitan is just like, ha ha ha, you missed, and the candle just like slides off its stem. That's more like a properties, like a prop effect, but like it's still really good for setting up that mood. Like, it's a vibe. The 1940s Mask of Zorro is a vibe.
Look, your movies that you're naming off is making me realize I was born with the wrong name, because these people have some really nice names. Like, how do I get a name like Rathbone? That's what I want to know.
Or Errol Flynn. Kind of a funny thing. If you're ever watching a movie that has sword fighting, based off of Errol Flynn, we have this phrase called flinning, where you'll see a person parry 3 and then riposte 1, 3 1 3 1 3 1, and they're doing that in the background, and we call that flinning. So thank you, Errol Flynn, for that. Just giving something fun to do for background.
Yeah, your
actors.
name has to be so popular they call things like Havling.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna get there one day. Don't worry, we got this.
Yeah, it can't be contracting an STD though.
All right. We can be practicing though.
Jesus.
All right, so number 2. I'm not sure if you folks have heard of this one, but it's called Le Bossu, and it's from 1997. It's got Danielle Auteuil and Vincent Perez. The English translation is, it was re-released in English as On Guard, and there is a fight between the character Legardère, played by Danielle Auteuil, and Philippe de Nevers, who was a duke. And it's, the story is really great. Except for like the last bit. I don't want to disclose too much because of spoilers, because I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy. But it was really hard to pick just one sword fight in this film that was really good. But ultimately, Oliver and I were talking. We were like, oh yeah, we got to do you became enemy. You were enemies and then became friends from this sword fight. Fight. And Philippe de Nevers, the Duke, actually taught Legardère, who is Le Bossu, his instant kill move. And it's fabulous. It's gorgeous. It's precise. And they clearly did their research into actual 18th century fencing. So if you get a chance, check out Les Bossus or the released English version, En Garde. Incredible movie. Just, again, another chef's kiss.
Well, props to you for being able to say all these names and words, because to me that sounded like an Italian dessert. So
Weird, it's French.
It's French.
French dessert, Italian.
God, you uncultured swine.
You know, it's
Well,
Luigi.
no, I mean, in your defense, a lot of the fencing techniques, or like they're based in HEMA, which is historic European martial arts. Of course, we have pulled from Eastern, and Pan-Asian. And we are starting to get more into Hama, which is historic African martial arts, which is really awesome, especially for spear work. But, a lot of these phrases that we say and that like compile our glossary of terminology for stage combat come from the Romantic languages like French and Italian and Spanish, because some of the, at least most noted historically, fencers were from those nations. And of course, German too, when you get a bit more into broadsword or longsword.
Because that's a little bit more aggressive.
It's a thing. It's a vibe. But yeah, a lot of longsword, broadsword terminology comes from Germanic languages. But yeah, when it comes to the disciplines that we teach, like small sword right now, rapier and dagger, even single sword, a lot of those come from the Romantic languages. So very French, very Spanish, very Italian leaning. So you're not totally off. It's vaguely European is kind of the whole encapsulation of like a lot of the vocabulary that we use in our classes. But yeah, Les Bossus is French. And then oh God, bringing it to number one. Probably nobody's going to be surprised by this one. The Princess Bride.
I know this one.
The fights in that are solid, and it was really hard for us to pick between Inigo Montoya and the Six-Fingered Man, or Inigo Montoya and the Man in Black,
right.
The Dread Pirate Roberts, like, because both of those fights are genuinely so good. But ultimately, we were like, okay, when it comes to that old Hollywood swashbuckling vibe, we gotta go with Inigo Montoya and the Man in Black, or the Dread Pirate Roberts, because that has all of the chivalry. It has the gentlemanly nature of small sword, of like, oh, you seem a decent fellow. Yes, I hate to kill you. Just that kind of vibe when it comes to small sword. So we ultimately went with that one.
But admittedly, I did not see Princess Bride for the first time until I was in my 30s, a couple years ago.
Honestly, don't feel bad about that, because The Princess Bride is one of those films where you can appreciate it at any age. One of my husband's party tricks is that he can recite the entire script of The Princess Bride from start to finish.
Nice.
That's a hell of a party trick.
Yeah, like it was just like a core memory defining moment for him.
It takes a solid hour and 15 minutes to do that trick.
Yeah, but he can do it.
Yeah.
And he's like really entertained our younger cousins and stuff like that by just like, we'll put on the movie and he will just face them and like, act everything out.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons why I have a massive crush on my husband, which is great. I love that for me.
All right, before we move on with this top five and me and Shorty give you ours, we are going to take a little pause for the cause. And it looks like the Facebook Live didn't work today. That's okay. You can catch this episode in a couple weeks on Spotify, but we'll be right back.
Do you love podcasts? Of course you do. That's why you're here. But you know what's even better than listening to a podcast? Making your own. That's right, and Anchor makes it simple. I'm your favorite host, MC Tyler Havlin, and I'm telling you, go download the Anchor app today, Anchor FM. They have all the tools you need to get started today. And best part is, it's totally free. They push it out to all the major platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. So get started today, people. Go download the app, Anchor FM. I'll wait. Do it now.
And we're back with Brittany Donahue from Argent. Say the name again. I'm going to butcher
Argent Combat.
Argent Combat. And my lovely co-host, Shorty. And Shorty, you're going to kick us off with your version of our top 5 today, right now.
So I was unaware of the short sword thing, so I just picked up favorite fights. And to be truth be told, I was unaware of what the top 5 was because I'm really bad at this. So he was like, "You got your top 5 ready?" I said, what's the top 5? He's like, top 5 favorite fights from movies. I was like, yeah, you got it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, dude, don't feel bad. Like Oliver and I were struggling. We had to spend like 5 hours last night just rewatching movies of like, oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, looking up clips. Like, yeah, this movie has a fight in it. Let's look it up. Nah, screw that fight. No. So one of my favorite scenes as far as fighting goes is probably Fight Club at the very end when you realize he's fighting himself. And it shows him in the parking lot punching the hell out of his stomach, his face, and everything like that. I just think that's really neat and super well done.
Yo, I am so glad you brought up Fight Club because there are some really solid things in there, especially with the fighting oneself, because that was something a lot of folks in our field were really struggling with in 2020 because we couldn't teach stage combat in person.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how do we instruct folks when it comes to theatrical violence if they're living alone? You
Right.
know, how do we do that safely? And one of the things I really love about stage combat is we don't refer to like victim or assailant. Like
yeah, fighter 1 and
like-
fighter 2.
Yeah, like, you know, because they kind of have negative connotations and they're kind of misleading because the thing is we refer to it as the operator and the receiver.
Sure.
So the operator is the person that enacts the action and the receiver is the recipient, the person that receives it. And one of the big rules is the recipient is in control. And Fight Club is fascinating because it is an exploration of the recipient is in control.
Right.
Especially with Edward Norton's self-fight scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the acid burn scene too, because you can tell that Edward he's the one controlling the action.
Right.
And the operator, Brad Pitt, is the one that's kind of guiding where the trajectory is. And that's a lot of stage combat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So super awesome that you mentioned Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
These are in no particular order because I didn't have time to put them down. But the next one was going to be Princess Bride, and it was going to be the first major fight of the whole movie versus Inigo Montoya and the Man in Black.
Hell yeah. It's a good fight.
I mean, I love that whole thing. I mean, especially the whole bit when they're sitting there going at it, like, oh, by the way, I am not left-handed. And they switch, everything like that. Like that, this shit cracks me up. I love it.
It's so good. It's so old school Hollywood. It's so good. It's such a good fight.
Man, you know, in true Tyler fashion, like, mine are not this deep.
No, it's not. I like the way that fucker died.
Deaths are cool. Deaths are interesting.
Yeah. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Number 3, honestly, like, I know you said something about Game of Thrones, but as somebody who has enjoyed old warfare and medieval warfare specifically, Game of Thrones, the Battle of the Bastards, nailed what old school and medieval warfare would have looked like from an individual's point of view. That's pure chaos and everything going on. And like, I know a lot of people and a lot of my friends who are really in the show hated that fight because they were like, oh no, that part was really cool, but I hated the way the fight was shot. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, it was too chaotic. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, as an infantryman in the Middle Ages, and you were in the middle of that, like most armies didn't actually do it that way. But when they came together and collided, you had no idea who was friend or foe. It was straight dissonance.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I think my complaint about Game of Thrones, and it's a thing that Oliver and I were talking about last night with Game of Thrones. I mean, we got a couple of things like there are some theatrical blades that they got. It's like it shouldn't be flopping around like a fly swatter, guys. Like you got it in your budget to get a good sword. Like, come on. But I think, and you just sparked this for me, the Battle of the Bastards is good for those elements, just the absolute chaos. But the problem was, I feel, the producers saw how good that was and applied it to every fight, even the one-on-ones. Like the one between Brienne of Tarth and the Hound. It's a good fight. It's a good fight.
Sure.
But the thing is, the narrative clarity gets lost because they kind of delved into that aesthetic of the way that I described it to Oliver is like, you know, those stroke simulation images that are AI generated where you look at it and you can't pinpoint one thing that's in that horde in that room. That's the aesthetic they were going for with every fight. And
when
it makes
really
me sad.
It only needed to be applied for big armies, not individuals and stuff like that.
Like, that is an interesting narrative tool for big melees like that. That's awesome. But the problem was that they were applying it to one-on-one combat. And it's like, well, there was one point where Brienne of Tarth grabbed a rock and somebody got hit in the head with a rock. And I know Brienne grabbed the rock, but I feel like she's the one on the ground that got smashed in the face with a rock. Like, what's going on here?
Right.
So that's where they kind of lost it. But that applied to grand melees, like the Battle of the Bastards. That actually works. There's narrative clarity, and it really kind of helps the audience experience that visceral nature of being in a grand melee. So yeah, that's a good fight.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Let's see. Number, was this 4, right?
That was 4, yeah.
That was 4?
Yeah, you're on 3, I think.
Oh, you're counting down.
Oh, that's right. You always count up. My bad.
Yeah, I always count up. Fuck.
Fingers and such.
Yeah, fingers and shit. Number 4 would be the original Karate Kid, in all seriousness.
Yeah.
I mean, are you going with the crane?
No, fuck that. That's stupid. But like not necessarily the fighting in as itself, but the instruction of it. Like,
yeah,
because you see a lot of like fucking, I don't know, for lack of a better term, whitewashed karate movies. Like, they kind of like, oh, it's all this, that, and the other. But like, you actually bring in somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing, and they're like, no, I'm going to show you how to actually do this discipline. And they like go through everything like that, you know.
You're doing the wax on, wax off.
I know. And like, I mean, they do that in the fucking movie. You know what I'm saying? But like, showing how, I don't know. To me, it was more of giving a understanding of discipline and respect, I guess, to
gave it practicality.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a majority of what we teach. Like, one of the things is, hey, you know, we're going to be doing cool stuff. We're going to be doing cool stuff with swords. You're going to look cool. But above all, the thing that really makes you look cool is your own confidence in your voice for consent, your autonomy and agency.
Right.
And Karate Kid nails that.
Yeah.
Freaking nails that. I'm so glad that you brought up Karate Kid, because when Cobra Kai came out on Netflix,
Oh, no, I've never
we were
seen
just
it.
like, Dude, this is a series that was made for our fight master Ian Rose and for him only. Like, it's great. It's great. But, it's just that level of understanding the discipline and the wisdom behind throwing your fists.
Right.
Yeah, so Karate Kid's a great call. Great call.
My last one, and probably my favorite one in recent memory, is The Witcher. In one of the very first fights when he becomes the butcher of Blaviken or whatever the name is of the city or town.
Gotcha.
And where he just you just see his, I don't know, to me it's part of the nostalgia of the video games coming out as well. When you stab somebody in the face and then you just rip the sword straight up through their skull, and you actually get to see that as form of a live action and not some shitty PS2 graphics. I got to see somebody put millions of dollars into this once, a skull splitting in half and brains going everywhere. I don't care if it's realistic. I don't want it to be realistic. I just want it to be badass.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things that we struggle with, because a part of it's so Oliver and I, we couldn't fully invest in The Witcher. Even though I love Henry Cavill, everything I've heard about the dude, he just becomes cooler. He just seems like a really nice person, and he's a really talented actor.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Witcher aesthetic. The games are super awesome as well. But a lot of, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of action-oriented entertainment, especially nowadays, a lot of it is, I don't want to say pandering, but I can't think of a better word. It is pandering to that nostalgia. Oh yeah, I need that serotonin. I need that adrenaline. So I personally couldn't get super into The Witcher. So I'm prompted to give it a shot. Especially when it comes to skull crushing. Myself and a really dear colleague of ours who's a fight master of the SAFD, we want to host a workshop strictly about how to die on stage and film, because it takes a lot of finessing.
Commit.
Commitment is one thing, but then also kind of
blade, girl.
Yeah, and also understanding, if you get stabbed in the gut, what happens is, of course, your insides become your outsides. But the thing is, a sack of acid in your body was just stabbed, and that acid is becoming the outsides, and its job is to digest. So your body, when you're stabbed in the stomach, starts to digest itself. That's an incredibly painful way to go.
What's his name? The guy who played Sauron in Lord of the Rings. You said his name earlier, Sir.
Ian McKellen.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, Christopher Lee, and then Ian McKellen was Gandalf.
Yes.
Yep.
When they were filming one of the scenes and Sauron had to stab Gandalf in the back, he was like, "Oh, I need you to make this sound," and he was like, "No, that's not how it sounds." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I have been stabbed in the back before. I know what it sounds like."
We gotta talk about Christopher Lee for a sec.
He brings in the practicality of listen, this is what it actually sounds like. Don't try to theatrically insinuate what it sounds like. This is what it is.
Yeah, we gotta talk about Christopher Lee for a second, because that dude is the lowest key absolute badass.
Oh yeah.
That is one of my favorite stories, so I'm so glad you brought it up, because holy crap, Christopher Lee. I'll put it this way, and this is a total summation of Christopher Lee as a person. Christopher Lee was not only friends with Tolkien, and Tolkien wrote Gandalf for Christopher Lee.
Right.
But Christopher Lee became Sauron.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee was also friends with the author of James Bond.
Yeah.
And James Bond stories were inspired by the actual exploits of Christopher Lee, the person.
Yeah.
Really?
The original
Yeah.
stories were, yeah.
Yeah. So Christopher Lee, just big ups.
And what's crazy
my
was
God.
he was nothing but highly regarded by like everybody that worked with him and spoke to him and everything like that. He was supposedly one of the most humble men in Hollywood. Like he never truly understood his fame.
No.
When
he
they
did
went through
not.
when they went through and did the they did interviews for Lord of the Rings, and he was talking about it. And of course at this point in time, like it wasn't long after the Return of the King that he passed away. But they did interviews and like you can tell he's way up there in age. And he was like, they were like, how do you feel about this? You know, do you hope it goes well? He's like, oh, I really don't mind. Like, it's whatever. Like, you know, this was a fun project. This was good, you know, great to see old friends, new friends, blah, blah, blah. It'll be heartbreaking to see everyone go after so long. He said, but I'm ready for retirement. You know, he just, like, he never understood it. Even watching earlier interviews from him, you know, way back in the day, he was just like, yeah, it's cool, I guess. Peter Jackson even said, he doesn't know how famous he is. He has no idea.
Nope.
Everyone's like, oh, hi. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he's like, good morning. How do all these people know my name?
Not just famous, but iconic.
Yeah.
Like that, he's just on a completely different tier. Kind of a dumb thing and a total segue. And Tyler, I really want to hear your top 5, but real quick. So Oliver and I are we're cinephiles. Like we love movies, we love performance. But he and I are total goth kids at heart. I mean, I'm literally wearing a Misfits shirt right now. My birthday is 2 weeks before Halloween, so all of my birthdays were Halloween themed growing up. We love horror movies, specifically those golden age Hammer films, the ones that got Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, and
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And those 3 gentlemen have birthdays literally days apart in May. So every May, we dedicate each day of the month to watch a film that features those guys.
Very nice.
The full trifecta, if all 3 of them are in the same film at once. Our first wedding anniversary is actually next month. Super hyped
okay.
for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I got to marry my crush. It's really awesome.
Hopefully
And I
that's
still
how it
have a
works for
crush
most
on him to
people.
this day. But yeah, we're going up towards Jim Thorpe, which is a really nice, like, you know, Poconos Mountain area here in Pennsylvania. And we're going to an old school vintage drive-through that's doing a double feature of Vincent Price films
Oh, that's awesome.
on the day of our wedding anniversary. So
That's dope.
that is our anniversary plans. It's really fucking dope. I'm
Well,
so excited.
Happy early anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to spend it with you guys today.
Aw.
All right, we'll be done here soon, and you can get to the rest of it. All right, I'm gonna jump into my top 5 because we are running short on time. So I'll preface this with saying, because I grew up in martial arts, it's hard for me to watch some stuff because I want to overanalyze it. And like, that can't happen, but there is some stuff that just grabs me. So if it's not a fantasy type setting, like some of the stuff you guys have talked about, it kind of like it's hard for me to watch, even though I grew up on cheap martial arts movies. Jean-Claude Van Damme for one, like that was like my guy when I was little. And then you grow up and you realize the guy can't really fight, and it kind of broke my heart. So number 5 on my list, well, let me start with my honorable mentions. Matrix and John Wick. Keanu Reeves is the man. But those fights are so out there that I didn't have to analyze them because they're just way out there.
You're telling me right now you don't think a real person can dodge those bullets like that? Boo, Tyler.
I mean, you have a better chance of dodging bullets than me. I'm a bigger target. But
Yeah.
The Matrix, like, it started a thing with the slow motion and that.
Oh, yeah,
So-
yeah.
And that was, I like that. That's fun for me. All
Okay,
right.
yo, but if you like John Wick though, real quick, there's that one POV overhead fight in John Wick that's like a long shot. If you like that fight, you gotta watch Four Musketeers, because that is the whole fight between Anthony Andrews and Christopher Lee in the Four Musketeers, because they got like that overhead shot and like
Of
like
Of all
Beautiful.
Of all the fights mentioned so far, that is the only one that I wrote down to check out. So it was the Four Musketeers. All right, but number 5 on my list is Equilibrium, that whole movie. So in Equilibrium, it's Christian Bale, Taye Diggs, a few other people that you look at and you'd be like, hey, I've seen that guy in a bunch of movies, but you can't always pick it out. They do this thing called a gun kata. So it's kind of like John Wick before John Wick. But check it out. It's really neat. It's a gun martial arts. Super dope.
Never heard of that movie.
Never heard of Equilibrium? You would like it. It's like a futuristic. They're burning books. They don't want people to learn. It's kind of like a throwback to World War II.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Equilibrium's like kind of cyberpunk in the way that Matrix is, but like I feel like they kind of had more room to play around with visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like Matrix after a few drinks.
Word.
It's really fun.
Word.
Equilibrium is really fun.
No, number 4 on my list is Ong Bak, and it's all Muay Thai, and it's just I love Muay Thai. It's one of my favorite martial arts. It's weirdly one of the easiest to do, but also one of the hardest to do. And they draw a lot from like everyday movements, and you see it in the movie, and some of it is like explained in snippets, but the whole movie from opening credits to the end, it's just nonstop, and I love it. Number 3 is Warrior. Now, it has Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton. It is a movie about MMA. However, these fights would never actually happen. Okay, they're outlandish, they're crazy. Like, you're not going to take these shots and keep fighting. But each one of these fights tugged at my heartstrings and told a story. And I thoroughly cried at the end of this movie.
Aw.
All right?
You big guy.
And I usually don't like movies like where the fighting is just so ridiculous, but it's made to be realistic. But this one, it got me. Next up on my list is Gladiator, because every fight in that made me cry. And Russell Crowe, he's a legend, right? And
yeah,
then
Gladiator's cool. Yeah.
And number 1 is 300. It's got the slow motion. It's got the gore. It's got all the swords. People getting disemboweled and dismembered. I'm here for it.
That comic book's really good.
I've never seen the comic book.
Oh man, you got it.
You've never read the comic book.
I've never read it. I've never seen it. Didn't know it existed.
Really?
Yeah.
Till when? Like now or
Till
like
just now?
You're fucking with me.
No.
You serious?
No. I'm sure
How
you
the
got it somewhere in here.
I know I have it. I don't know where it is at the moment, but I know I own it. V for Vendetta was also a comic book.
I knew that. I love that movie.
All right. The Watchmen was also a comic book.
I know that.
Do we need to go over anything else? The Crow?
No, I knew that one.
Oh, Brandon Lee. Oh, buddy.
How did you not know that? I am astounded right now.
I just didn't.
Honestly, dude, like the comic, as much as I love that movie, 300, they left out one of my key favorite lines from the movie, which didn't make any sense because he was already narrating the fucking scene.
What's the line? Give me the line.
And the sky went black with arrows that came raining down like 1,000 chirping birds. And it's when the Persians unleash the fucking volley of arrows at the fucking Spartans, and they fucking raise their shield and just take the fucking hit, and they start laughing about it.
I thought that was in the movie.
No. They reworded the whole fucking thing. And I don't know why they did.
I don't either. It turned out good, though. That's all
It
I
was
know.
great. It was a fantastic movie. But like when I was sitting there watching it, I'm like, they missed the golden opportunity. Why skip it?
All right, Brittany, it has been wonderful having you on today, and we have reached our time. Give everybody some parting words.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all, thank you so much for having me on. I had a blast. If you want to talk more movies, hell, just let me and Oliver know, because we love talking action movies. But yeah, if any folks want to follow us, if you're in the Philly area and you're interested in learning about stage combat and theatrical violence, we're here to take you under our wing. We're Argent Combat. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and God knows what it's called now. The Bird app. We'll just call it Twitter or X for now.
The app formerly known as Twitter.
The app, the artist formerly known as Twitter. But yeah, our handle's Argent Combat. We're hoping to really start up. We call it our Taste of Violence course, where folks can like sample different stage combat disciplines. So you can come take a workshop with us to get your feet wet. We're teaching a small sword course. So if you're super into becoming a musketeer, if you want to be Basil Rathbone or Tyrone Powell or Errol Flynn, we're teaching that class starting up in October. We're hoping to add a couple more days because the interest has been super big. I would really love to teach that workshop on how to die for stage and film and all the gross things behind death and dying. So hope you folks sign up for that too. And I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right. Well, that's all we got for today. So in the meantime,
In the betweens time.
remember, great minds think alike, but idiots rarely disagree. Cue the music. We out. I'm Tyler,
I'm Shorty.
I'm Miles.
I'm Kara.
and we are the Inner Idiot.
The following podcast has strong language, violence, and other things you probably shouldn't let your children listen to. Please enjoy.